Hello, Bucknell River Symposium. My name is Matt Shank. I'm a water program specialist with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. I'm here today to talk to you about aquatic warming stripes and how we can use these plots to visualize climate change impacts to freshwater ecosystems. So first of all, I'm going to go over kind of the anatomy of a warming stripes plot and how I've adapted these visualization tools that have typically been used to show changes in air temperature data and trends in global climate and air temperature, how I've adapted this concept to do something similar and analogous in rivers and streams. I'm going to talk specifically about the methods I use to acquire the data and present the data that I've been able to acquire, and then I'm going to give a short overview of an interactive website showing a nationwide data set that uses aquatic warming stripes to portray the data. And then I'm going to make a request for additional data. We have some holes in the data set, and if we could fill those holes in specifically for local watersheds, I think that would be beneficial. So let's get started. So what is a warming stripes plot? This is a warming stripes plot of global mean annual air temperatures. This concept was created by Ed Hawkins. He's a climate scientist at the University of Reading. In his description, it's a minimalistic and intuitive way of communicating trends of changing temperatures that is meant for the general public. So the scientific minds in the virtual audience will immediately notice what's missing. There are no axis labels on the X or Y. There's no legends to give additional descriptions. There's no units, etc. However, this format is intuitive enough to convey the message. We understand what's going on here. But there are some things under the hood that would be good to state up front. So these plots, these graphs show the change in temperature of each year based on the difference between the 1971 to 2000 reference period. So each bar represents 1 year and is colored based on the difference between that individual year, so this could be 1850, compared to this reference period. So this was taken from Ed Hawkins' website, showyourstripes.info. So you can select a region of the globe. I'm going to look for the North American continent, and I'm going to choose the US. And let's look for Pennsylvania. So we're going to scroll down here and generate a Pennsylvania warming stripes plot with this interactive plotter. So this isn't as clear cut as the global warming stripes plot. You have warm years earlier on in the period of record and some colder years later on, but you get the general trend where from 1895 to 2019, there is a strong warming trend, and I think this plot conveys that. And this Show Your Stripes hashtag on Twitter has kind of taken warming stripes and ran with them. You can now get a warming stripes paint job on your Tesla Model 3, a $60 pair of leggings. You can also get a face mask, which are pretty hot right now. Even a throw pillow to decorate your house with. So I wanted to take this concept I think is very intuitive and compelling and adapt it for aquatic ecosystems, which are require a different approach than air temperatures. But I wanted to keep this kind of interactive plot generating website, keep that core concept in the fold as well. Okay, so now on to the adaptation of warming stripes into freshwater environments. The U.S. Geological Survey continuously monitors rivers and streams nationwide. The parameters that the USGS monitors are often stream flow and water temperature. So I wrote a function in the R statistical environment to identify stations that had been continuously monitoring water temperature for more than 10 years. 224 stations were identified using this code, and I downloaded over 2.2 million temperature record observations in R from these 224 stations. I then summarized the data into yearly mean water temperature for each site and removed years with less than 11 months of data. After this data cleaning, the number of sites with more than 10 years of data was 197. Annual mean temperatures were plotted using ggplot in this interactive plot generator. And the fill aesthetic was set to the annual mean temperature, and the colors were controlled by the scale fill distiller diverging red and blue color palette. I then created an interactive website, which I'm going to loop through here in a video behind the scenes. This interactive website shows the available sites on a map. You can zoom in, click the site. You can toggle between aerial and topographic base layers. You can click and get a pop-up box with more information that you need to create the graphic. You can also go to the website, the USGS website where this data is available from. And then once you know the state and the station name, you can go through this drop-down box to seek it out, select it, and here's the West Branch Brandywine Creek at Coatesville, Pennsylvania. There are also reset features for the map, so you can zoom back to the full extent. And there is code below that makes this somewhat reproducible. Here is the actual website itself. So here's the link in the URL bar that was available from the previous PowerPoint slide. This link is available for anyone to use. This is a website just like any other. You can click hyperlinks to take you to Ed Hawkins' page, and you can use the functionality as shown in the previous video. I just wanted to give a separate demo here with a little bit more information. So any site on this map is color coded by the period of record. The lighter colors, lighter greens, are shorter. The darker colors are longer periods of record. So if we want a long period of record, let's go up here, search for a dark purple. Here's the Missouri River, state's Montana. There's the station name. So I'm going to scroll back up here, and I'm going to select that station from the drop-down box. I went past it. Looking for Montana, Missouri River at Tolston. There it is, and there's the warming stripe spot that gets generated. So that's in a nutshell how the website works. You can also, if you want to look and see what's going on here, it looks like there's a bottom release dam that's happening, which would explain the colder temperatures. Get an aerial photo to see, okay, there's the dam and there's the station. So you can just kind of peruse around here. And this is all R code here that you can take and reproduce this data set. There's not code for the Shiny application here. That gets a lot more complex, but if you're looking to just assemble the data set like I've done here, you should be able to using all this code. Now there are a few additions I've included that make these aquatic warming stripes less minimalist and in my view more informative. There are, in the interactive website as shown previously, there's a title printed for each plot so you can know the location, the river, the nearest town, the state. There's also dates on the x-axis label. And there's also a legend with units included. This is all degrees Celsius. I don't think aquatic data is not as uniformly available, and you see gaps in the period of record, which for various reasons, those of us who use continuous monitors, there's a lot of reasons to have missing data. There's ice, there's theft, high flows. There's a lot of equipment that isn't usually as impactful in the air temperature monitoring realm. Also, the periods of record are not as long, so it's good to know when the period starts and ends. And there's also no reference period here because that period of record is so variable. Each period of record is shown in the raw Celsius units, so that's why this legend is necessary. So Now that we've seen how the interactive tool works, I wanted to just give examples of some takeaways. So I spent some time with the tool. There's a couple different ways you can use it. You can zoom right into your location, your geography of interest, and start looking at what data are available and what the data say. Or you can, as I did, kind of back out at a general scale and just look across the vast swath of territory that's available and just look at trends that are happening in different locations. So here's an example of a cold system. This is the Terre River at the mouth near Kodiak, Alaska. You'll see that this system is very cold in a relative sense, with mean annual temperatures ranging from 3.5 to almost 5 degrees Celsius, which is very cold for a mean annual temperature. But these, even though they're very cold, are warming at a rapid pace. You can see in the early 90s the temperatures were below 3.5, and in recent years they have accelerated in their warming. So one of the things I was curious about, systems that are already warm, are they warming as well? Are they warming as rapidly? This is a much different system than one in Alaska. This is in the West Fork Trinity River at Grand Prairie, Texas. So this is the southern U.S. And you can see a lot of evidence for increased warming there as well. You'll notice that the temperature range is much higher, from 20 to almost 23 degrees Celsius, which is much warmer than Alaska, obviously, but the warming trend is pretty uniform. Before the 1980s, we're at the lower end of that temperature range, and we're climbing in recent years. Rivers in the Rocky Mountains are also warming at a rapid pace. Here's the Flathead River at Columbia Falls, Montana, and the period of record is almost the same, 1980 to present day, and those earlier years were colder, and we have a strong warming trend. So no matter the geography, you're seeing a similar trend. These are some of the sites with the longest period of record and the least missing data where this trend really comes through. There's also, a lot of different takeaways. There are sites directly downstream of hypolimnetic reservoirs that release water from below the thermocline, so they're bottom release dams. They're releasing cold water year round. The water is warmer than the air temperature in the winter and colder in the summer, and they have a very limited range of temperature deviation. So these sites, if you're monitoring close enough to the dam, may not be as impacted by increased air temperatures moving forward. And then there's sites where there are changes in dam operations that become apparent. So I shared this tool with a colleague in Virginia, and she mentioned that the Jackson River below this dam near Hot Springs, Virginia, changed their reservoir operations, and as a result, the temperature regime changed drastically. And this would be something with for biologists who want to correlate temperature and the effects on biology, would probably want a different level of detail, to do additional analyses, but this tool could be something that just tips you off to show that there's something going on. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that there is a big hole in the data set right here. The only data available in Pennsylvania is from the Delaware drainage. And remember that I only searched within the USGS data set for data that met the criteria of greater than 10 years with at least daily, most often 30-minute or 15-minute observations. However, it would be of extreme personal interest, and I think interest to those in attendance today, to have data from the Susquehanna or the Ohio River drainages. So if anyone has or knows of any data sets that would qualify and could be included in this interactive tool, I would love to include that with appropriate permissions, of course. So just a plea, here's a wanted poster for the Susquehanna River Basin. I think it'd be great to have data included there as well as these other systems throughout the country. So that's it. Thank you everybody for your attendance virtually, and I would just make a plea, if you have any questions or suggestions or data that you'd like to contribute, Here's my contact information. Please reach out. Thank you all.